everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at project management network diagrams, and more specifically we're going to be looking at how to calculate early start, early finish, late start, late finish, and total float, which is also called slack. So let's go. So to get us through these calculations, we're going to be using the specimen question from the CXC BMED syllabus. And this question can be found at the back. So this question says Table 1 shows the activities, their estimated duration, and predecessors for a construction project. And in the table, you see where they have the activities labeled from A to H. You have duration and the predecessors. So let's go through the questions now. Construct the project activity network using AOA methodology. And we know AOA stands for activity on arrow. Label each node and arrow appropriately. Now, while the process to getting the solution is not shown in this video, it can be viewed in a previous video. So for this video, we're just showing the solution that we got from that one. Part B of the question reads, determine the duration of the project. This too was done in a previous video, and so we're just showing the results. But you can see from the results that we've added the times for the 3 different paths to determine the critical path, which is also the duration of the project. Okay, so now we're at the critical point, the whole purpose of this video, to calculate the early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, and slack times for each activity. Now, these can be calculated using a table or activity on node method, and for this presentation, we'll be using both. So we'll be using the AON method to complete the table, and that's really much easier. We have at the bottom, you can see the diagram highlighting the layout for the AON, and then beside it, you have its key. Before we start calculating, we are going to get to understand the terms. First one, early start. This is the earliest time any activity can start, providing there's no delay in the project. To determine the early start, we usually start with the starting activity, and that procedure is called the forward pass. And the starting activity is always given an early start time of 0. Reason being, if we were to give it, say, a 1, starting on day 1, then that would delay or throw off the calculations and the times for the activity. So if you had an activity with, say, a duration of 2 days and your early start time was 1, then that would basically be saying that the activity would end on day 3, which would be inaccurate. So for starting activity, early start is always given a time of 0. Now, next one, early finish. This is the earliest any activity can finish, provided there is no delay in activities. Formula for that, early finish is equal to early start plus duration. After the starting activity, the early start time is equal to the early finish of the previous activity. So that basically means that the early start would be equal to the early start plus duration of the previous activity. Let me show you what I mean. Starting activity is followed by B and C. So the early start of B and C are equal to the early finish of A. Then we just continue to calculate early start and early finish using the formula. Early finish is equal to early start plus duration. Now, what do we do when we have early start of activities with multiple predecessors? So, example, this one in D. D has 2 predecessors, B and C. Let's find out how we determine the early start of such an activity. Early start of an activity with more than 1 predecessors is really easy to calculate. It's equal to maximum early finish, which is the largest value for early finish of any of its predecessors. Let's take a look. Activity D has predecessors B and C with early finish times 8 and 10. So naturally, 10 is the largest early finish. That becomes the early start of D. Following that, we can continue finding early start and early finish using the formula. When we get to an activity that has more than 1 predecessors, procedure remains the same. Find the predecessor with the largest value for early finish. In this case, it's F. and 17. So 17 becomes H's early start. So now to transfer to the table. We have calculated early start and early finish of all the activities, and so we fill those in. I don't advise waiting until we complete all calculations to fill in the table because we can make errors in doing the transfer. So it's better to do it stage by stage. Now for late start, late finish, and slack. How do we calculate these? Let's find out. Latest finish. That's the latest time any activity can finish without delaying the end date of the project. To determine the latest finish, we start with the last activity, and that procedure is called the backward pass. So latest finish for the last activity will be equal to the early finish of that activity. So for H, 22 is the early finish time, and so that becomes the late finish time as well. Latest start. This is the latest any activity can start without delaying the end date of the project. To calculate the latest start, we subtract the duration from the latest finish. Let's take a look. So we're looking at H again. The latest finish of H is 22. The duration is 5, so 22 minus 5 gives you 17, and that becomes the late start. Now please note, when you have multiple activities being predecessors of an activity, the latest finish of these activities can be determined by the latest start of the succeeding activity. So therefore, late finish is equal to latest start of succeeding activity. Sounds like a lot, so let me show you what I'm talking about. We're looking at H again, and H has predecessors G, F, and E. So how do we determine what's the late finish for these three activities? Simple. The late finish for these activities is equal to the late start of H. Makes it much clearer, doesn't it? There you go. So late finish is equal to late start of succeeding activity. Now let's go back to calculating latest start. Now remember, latest start is equal to latest finish minus duration. So for F, the latest start is equal to 17 minus 4, which gives 13. For E, 17 minus 5, which gives 12. G, 17 minus 2, which gives 15, and D, 13 minus 3 to give 10. Do we have a problem? No, we don't. When we have more than one activity with one successor, how are we going to treat that? So B and C both share one successor. The latest finish of these activities will be equal to the latest start of the successor. So the latest finish for B and C is equal to 10, which is the latest start of D. Now, we continue to calculate latest start of the other activities. So for B, it's equal to 10 minus 5 to give 5, and for C, it's 10 minus 7 to give 3. Now A has two successors. How do we determine which of the late start gives us our late finish? The latest finish of A is equal to the minimum latest start between B or C, its successors. So the latest start of B is 5 and the latest start of C is 3. Therefore, the minimum or smallest value for latest start of the two is 3, and this becomes the latest finish of A. After that, we can simply calculate the latest start by subtracting duration from latest finish, which gives us 0. Now we're at the final calculation, the total float, otherwise known as the slack. Now this is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the end date of the project, and that is important. Remember, the key to the project activity network diagram is to ensure that the end date of the project is not delayed. So to calculate total float, we simply subtract the earliest finished from the latest finished, or the earliest start from the latest start. And please note, for activities that have a total float of 0, these form part of the critical path. And remember also, the critical path is the duration of the project. It's the path that takes the longest time to complete. Got it? Good. For H, we see that the latest finish was 22 and the earliest finish was 22 as well. 22 minus 22 gives you 0. So the total float or slack for H is 0. Or we could have done latest start minus earliest start, and that would be 17 minus 17 to give you 0. So whether you use late start, early start, or late finish, early finish, the answer for total float or slack should be the same. So if you're calculating it and you realize that you're getting different values, you recognize that something has gone wrong. Now for the other activities, we do the same. And we can see that the critical path of this project is A, C, D, F, H, because all these activities have a total float or slack of 0. Now all you have to do is transfer your values to the table. Yay, we did it! We calculated early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, and slack for all activities. Congratulations, everyone! I hope you found this video very helpful. Leave a comment below and stay tuned for more videos. Bye bye!